Tuesday of the 27th week in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Galatians. Brothers and sisters, you heard of my former way of life in Judaism, how I persecuted the Church of God beyond measure and tried to destroy it, and progressed in Judaism beyond many of my contemporaries among my race, since I was even more a zealot for my ancestral traditions. But when he who from my mother's womb had set me apart and called me through his grace was pleased to reveal his Son to me so that I might proclaim him to the Gentiles, I did not immediately consult flesh and blood, nor did I go up to Jerusalem to those who were apostles before me. Rather, I went into Arabia and then returned to Damascus. Then, after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem to confer with Cephas and remained with him for 15 days. But I did not see any other of the apostles, only James, the brother of the Lord. As to what I am writing to you, behold, before God, I am not lying. Then I went into the regions of Syria and Cilicia, and I was unknown personally to the churches of Judea that are in Christ. They only kept hearing that the one who was once persecuting us is now preaching the faith he once tried to destroy. So they glorified God because of me. The word of the Lord.
Responsorial Psalm. The response is, Guide me, Lord, along the everlasting way. O Lord, you have probed me and you know me. You know when I sit and when I stand. You understand my thoughts from afar. My journeys and my rest you scrutinize. With all my ways you are familiar. Guide me, Lord, along the everlasting way. Truly you have formed my inmost being. You knit me in my mother's womb. I give you thanks that I am fearfully, wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. Guide me, Lord, along the everlasting way. My soul also you knew full well, nor was my frame unknown to you when I was made in secret, when I was fashioned in the depths of the earth. Guide me, Lord, along the everlasting way.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus entered a village where a woman whose name was Martha welcomed him. She had a sister named Mary, who sat beside the Lord at his feet, listening to him speak. Martha, burdened with much serving, came to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me by myself to do the serving? Tell her to help me. The Lord said to her in reply, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and worried about many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken from her. The Gospel of the Lord.
The first reading comes from Galatians 1:13-24. Remember, Paul is writing to a community that he had evangelized, and then after he left, Jewish Christian missionaries came from Jerusalem and accused Paul of not being a true apostle, of preaching a false gospel. They accused Paul of hating the Jewish ways. Well, what does Paul say? I'm more Jewish than any of them. I persecuted the church. I had progressed in Judaism, which would imply that he was a Pharisee. And he speaks about the Lord having set him apart from his mother's womb in order to preach to the Gentiles. Now, this is a reference to Jeremiah the prophet, who was called a prophet to the nations. Jeremiah speaks about how God set him apart to be a prophet before he was born. Interestingly enough, Jeremiah came from the tribe of Benjamin, just as Paul does. Now, why was Jeremiah called a prophet to the nations? We don't know, because he never really preached to the nations. He preached to the people of Israel. Paul says he fulfills what was foretold in that title, that he truly is the apostle to the nations. And his apostleship doesn't depend upon flesh and blood. He didn't get a command from the other apostles. Rather, he encountered Jesus on the road to to Damascus. And in fact, he only went down to Jerusalem 3 years after his conversion to consult with Cephas and James. Why? Probably to know more about the earthly life of Jesus. He knew about the resurrected Jesus, whom he had encountered on the road to Damascus. He didn't know about the earthly things. The way that this is phrased is not quite what we hear about in Acts of the Apostles. Luke was writing his account many years later, and he wasn't an eyewitness to these events. Paul's version is probably exactly what happened. The Gospel is from Luke 10, 38 to 42. Jesus goes to the house of Mary and Martha, and Martha is very busy with the responsibilities of hospitality. Remember, Jewish people show hospitality through food, so she's very busy preparing a meal for Jesus. Meanwhile, Mary's doing very little, and Martha becomes a little upset at that, to ask Jesus to tell Mary to get busy. What does Jesus respond? She's chosen the better portion. Now, throughout the history of the church, that's often been interpreted as Mary being an example of a contemplative, where Martha is busy about many things. I have to tell you the truth. If I get invited to Thanksgiving supper, I think I'm going to go to Martha's house, not Mary, because at least Martha will remember to serve you a meal. Mary will sit there the whole evening and just look at you and not even understand that you're hungry. This could also be interpreted, though, in terms of simply taking time for people. That Mary is being present to a guest, where Martha is so busy doing things that she doesn't have the time to even say hello to Jesus, other than scolding her sister for not helping her with the housework. Sometimes we spend so much time working and doing things that we ignore the people around us. This is a passage that calls us back to that simple joy of enjoying people, being present for them. And may God bless us.